It's a question so many of us have on our minds. Who's better, Arizona State's offense or Arizona State's defense?
Yep. Happy Thursday and welcome into the PHNX Sun Devils show. Of course, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by Circle K. Make sure you join Inner Circle for free by downloading that Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. I am Anthony Totri, the man dancing to my right, your left. That is, of course, Senor Rubis. We've got Captain Redbeard behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen. Do us a solid. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. The 5th Arizona State spring practice is officially in the books. What did we see? Who did we see? And the big question, will Arizona State's offense, led by Sam Leavitt, be better than that Arizona State defense? We've got that. And then, of course, we're diving into the transfer portal to see.
We're diving too?
We're diving into.
We're just like
putting our
every single basketball player at Arizona State.
We are going to discuss the recent movements. Of course, we talked a little Jaden Quaintance yesterday. That is, of course, Ralph Amson and myself. But the Rubis will have his hour as well to say how he feels about the JQ departure. But I do want to start with Kenny and the boys because, of course, I feel like that's a little bit more positive. As
You
of
think?
late. Just a tad.
Really?
And
what would make you think that?
I'm sure Mr. Spin Zone over here can spin it.
Brother, I might be Senior Spin Zone, but even Senior Spin Zone has his limits.
He's got his limits to being able to spin whatever the heck is happening with
I was
ASU
talking with
basketball.
Shane, he big Mo Odom guy. Almost had me back in.
Shane does this every year.
No, he said he wasn't trying. He said he wasn't trying to tell me to begin. We'll get into that later. But man, okay, so we're 5 spring football practices in, and I feel like the main theme I keep seeing is a lot of wide receiver pass catching talk, and I've seen a lot of Jaren Hamilton, the Alabama transfers. He's popping as much as it feels like he's popping on my timeline in person.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And I think the nice thing about him over the course of the first 5 practices is it feels like you can already kind of see his development, his growth a little bit. And I know it's quick, but I think the first couple practices, at least from what I saw, there were some drop issues, but I don't think it was based off of strictly like his talent, right? Like this is a D1 wide receiver. We know he can catch the ball, but it kind of goes back to what we were talking about on Tuesday, just in terms of it takes a lot for some of these guys when Arizona State is installing everything that they're installing so early on to spring ball, for them to be like, okay, this is the route I have to run. This is what everybody else is doing aside from me. I've got to get open. I've got to know my steps. And I also have to catch the football. So I think in the first couple practices, you still saw like the wheels turning. And I think today and on Tuesday as well, you've noticed his speed. His hands have gotten significantly better, which again, I don't think has anything to do with his hands, just more so him being able to actually comprehend the offense. And it's starting to feel a little bit more like, okay, this is natural, right? So the way that he's been running his routes, his speed, he does have a second gear, which is really, really nice to see for an Arizona State offense that didn't really have that guy last year, somebody that can really be your burner. I know they had quick guys, but there's a difference between quick and then breakaway speed. And Jaren Hamilton has that kind of moving him all over the offense, which I like to see a little bit in the slot, more on the perimeter, which is where I expect him to be.
Fastest guy in the room?
Fastest guy in the room by far.
By far.
Yeah, I don't think it's close. I think it would go him and then Zechariah Sample probably right below him. But yeah, Jaren Hamilton, you're seeing him all over the timeline because he continues to impress at these practices. He's catching touchdowns at 101s. He's catching first downs in team periods. He looks good in the individual drills. Like he is slowly starting to be like, okay, I could see how this dude was at Alabama for a year.
Yeah, but he's still not, I guess, technically right now running with the ones. That's still Tyson, McLean, Moss.
Yeah, so I don't expect Jaren Hamilton to start, but
to play for sure.
I think he will definitely play. I think, again, this is more of like a Malik McLean's position to lose at that perimeter wide receiver spot. We know Tyson's going to be on the opposite side. It feels pretty locked in that Jalen Moss is going to be your starting slot guy.
Okay.
But Jaren Hamilton is definitely giving Malik McLean a run for his money.
Well, and I think that's, I mean, A, that's exactly what you want, but B, they're such different players. Like, Malik's fast. Like, don't let this come off as me saying that Malik is slow, because he's certainly not. He wouldn't have been able to make the plays that he made in the Big 12 championship and in the Peach Bowl if he wasn't extremely athletic and extremely fast. But he's a big dude. Big guy.
Ginormous.
Huge dude.
And his hands look better than they did last spring.
And that's what he's going to be more of your possession guy. Tyson's going to be your do-it-all, right? Moss is going to be your kind of short-term, like we need 4 yards right now. Let's get it to Jalen Moss. And then what I'm excited for is, you know what goes great with a really fast wide receiver who has breakneck speed and gets down the field?
A quarterback with a cannon of an arm.
A cannon of an arm. Yeah. Who it does feel like he wasn't always able to just, I mean, and partially because he wasn't able to rein it in as well, but just go full bomb down the field, Uncle Rico status, right? Like, and that's something that I feel like Sam can do, and we saw him struggle with containing that at this point last year. And so now having kind of this option, right, where, okay, we have a great possession, athletic wide receiver, Malik McLean. I have my number one that I have a lot of faith in and that I have a lot of chemistry with in Jordan Tyson, right? And now I have Jalen Moss, who's played a lot of college football, who's going to, I don't want to say he's going to fit in the Melquan Stovall role, because I think that he's going to be utilized a lot more than Melquan Stovall. Yeah. But steady hands, somebody that could just kind of be over the middle and be a little bit of a security blanket, along with Shaman in the tight end room. And we've talked a lot of tight ends too. And now you're throwing into that equation something that I don't really think they had last year, which is just your 4-verse guy. You're run them down the field and bomb. And maybe because you have so many different pieces and options, they forget about Hamilton. And Hamilton maybe isn't averaging over 3 to 4 receptions per game, but those 1 to 2 that he gets are big, they're gonna be game-changing plays.
Yeah, in theory they should be.
So that's kind of like the recipe that I see playing out, especially because you might get used to guarding a Malik in a certain type of defensive package. Same thing with Moss, same thing with Tyson, and then all of a sudden you got a speed demon in there, and that changes a lot of things quickly.
Yeah, I mean, if you just quickly again go through some of the matchups that a defensive coordinator is going to have to take into account when trying to set up a game plan for Arizona State. Of course, you know that Sam Leavitt is the guy. He is a problem in and of himself. Like, that's the guy that you know you have to stop. But then you zoom out and you look at all the weapons around him. More weapons this year, I would say, by far than they had last year. You mentioned Jordan Tyson, who I think we both agree is a top 5 wide receiver in college football. You've got your big 6'4" wide receiver in Malik McLean on the opposite end. You've got a Jalen Moss, who has played, like you said, a lot of college football. He can get open, runs crisp routes, just finds different ways to really escape defenders. We just talked about Jaren Hamilton, the speed that he brings. And then in reality, I'm going to be honest here, I think this is going to be one of the best tight end rooms in the country.
I completely agree with you.
Shaman is obviously an all-conference tight end. He looks as good as he did last year. I think the one knock on Shaman is still that he's maybe not the fastest tight end in the room or the fastest guy at that position, but right behind him, you have a Kamari Anderson, an SEC tight end transferring from Kentucky. He's got good speed. We've seen him rotate in. AJ Aya is he's a unit of a tight end. He can run, he can block, he can catch, he can do everything that you want a freshman tight end to do.
I think he's your tight end 1 next year.
I'd have to see.
Shaman?
I don't know. Eligibility is a weird thing in
Who
today's
knows?
era of
You can enter
sports.
the portal even if you don't have any eligibility left.
But you have all of those weapons, and we haven't even talked about the backfield, right? And I know there was a question, I think House of Heat Sports asking earlier about, is Kanye starting? That is still, we're still in the midst of that competition between Kyson and Kanye. And like, there are guys even behind them that we're talking like, okay, where does Raleek fit in? Where does Jason Brown Jr. fit in? Because these are talented players in there. This roster this year is not filled with guys that on last year's team would be a 2 or a 3 and you wouldn't see them, or they wouldn't have big play, potential. I look at a guy like a Kanye or a Kyson, whichever one doesn't start, being like, okay, if Kyson doesn't start, we saw him really, really grow last season. And if he does start and Kanye is behind him, then we're talking about a former 1,000-yard rusher as your second
string,
back, right? And a Raleek Brown, who was so talented, he played wide receiver at USC at one point.
And a completely different player, too.
Absolutely. So now we're talking about all of these different weapons that are not just starters. They're in the two deep, which, yes, that presents issues for the defense, but it makes Sam's life a little bit easier. And realistically, it makes a defensive coordinator's head spin trying to figure out, okay, how do we try and account for all of these different guys? Because you're going to need a defensive back that at some point fits the size of what Malik McClain can do with the jump balls. You're going to need somebody that can move laterally the way Jalen Moss does to get open. You're going to need a speedster on defense to try and run with Jaren Hamilton. And then, don't forget, your best corner is going to have to be matched up against Jordan Tyson,
who's probably going to be able to do one of those things really well about those other receivers, but he can't be on them.
Yeah.
Because Jordan Tyson can do all of those things all rolled into one. And that's just your wide receiver. Right? And I think the best part, and I know it's like, I don't think the word worrying is a good way to put it, but it's intriguing just how many options and how deep this is. And I think for most coaching staffs, it would be difficult. And I'm not saying it's not difficult, but I have faith in this offensive coordinator and Sean Aguano and the entire offensive staff and Kenny to figure out how to use everybody. But this is not a team built off of I'm going to get mine.
No.
Right? Like this is built off of we're going to be a great team. And that's why everybody is here. And that's why that culture is so important, because you do have somebody in Kanye or Kyson who I do believe both are deserving to be running back one here. One of them is not going to be running back one. Even if it's by committee, there's no chance that they literally alternate every other, like somebody's getting more carries and maybe it shifts from game to game. Right? But I'm not worried about that. Same thing with wide receiver. Like I'm not worried about all this depth behind Jordan Tyson, making Jordan Tyson upset he's not going to get the lion's share of targets.
Which he will.
He will, but also there might be a game where he doesn't because maybe there is a lockdown corner.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you go into a game like, I know that these players aren't on there anymore, but you go into a game like against Kansas who has really good secondary. And I know Tyson got his against Kansas, but still, like you have a really good secondary, right? And they're focused on Jordan Tyson, and the whole game plan is to take Jordan Tyson out of the game. Jordan Tyson's not going to give a flying crap if Malik McClain and Jalen Moss and Shimon Mateer and AJ and Jared Hamilton, like
the list just goes on and
he's
on.
not going to care.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing if like, hey, we're playing a Swiss cheese running defense. I don't care. Like, I don't care if Sam Leavitt doesn't care if he's not throwing the ball every other possession to get his own stats up. He'll gladly turn around and hand it to Kanye or Kyson or Raleek and just be like, go.
Yeah.
Right? Like, those are the things that make it so important to establish what Kenny and company have put in is this culture as this, like, we are together. We are a unit. You are not here for individual success only. And if you are, then bye.
Yeah.
Like, you don't fit in here.
100%.
And that's going to come into play when you have so many players in each position. And I always look at the Caleb McCullough example from last season where somebody who was not a redshirt freshman, right? Somebody who was very late into their college career, I believe in his final season, and was waiting for his turn. And he got it.
And he won in the Utah game.
And he took advantage of it. And he was playing since then. Right? Like people see that and they know that that is there for the culture and how important it is to have depth. That's just very exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. And even if a defensive coordinator is able to account for all those options, let's say you do run into a defense in the college football playoff again, or you run into a championship game in the Big 12 and there is a defense that can match you offensively. We haven't even talked about the fact that, hey, Sam Leavitt's a dual threat quarterback.
Correct.
He not only has a cannon.
He might be running back too.
He can run for his life, right? And I have been a big believer that he looks bigger. He looks maybe an inch taller. He looks like he put on 7 pounds maybe. So he is going to be tougher to deal with based off of, what we saw last year. He's definitely learned a lot from being QB1 last year. And Marcus Arroyo, something that's kind of stuck with me since we talked to him weeks and weeks ago before spring ball, was he was asked about Cam Scatteraboo. How do you replace it, right? And he said you don't replace Cam Scatteraboo, but you got to find a way to replace the actual production, replacing the numbers, right? And it's a little bit of a math game, right? Being like, okay, well, we have nearly 2,700 all-purpose yards, maybe more, right? That we have to find a way to divvy up in 20 plus touchdowns. Well, how do we do that? Well, you can see when Kenny and Marcus and all these assistant coaches went in the portal and got some of these guys, you're like, okay, well, I can see him getting 700 yards this year.
Yeah.
I can see him getting a couple touchdowns this year. It's going to be really, really spread out, but I still do believe that Jordan Tyson is going to be your 80 reception, 1,200 receiving yard, like 10 touchdown kind of year, just because he is that talented. And they do have that chemistry, him and Sam. So we'll
put the graphic up. How much better they were first. We were literally looking at it before you got in here.
Oh my gosh, we're putting it up.
You're that upset about it.
We just have this.
Do you know? I looked up
burned into my head.
Guess what day this was made? I looked it up before the show. Guess what day that this first half or second half Sam Leavitt graphic was made?
Got to be during a bye week, so November.
Well, think about how many games were played.
So all of them. So end of the year. So I don't know, December 1st,
December 18th.
Wow.
It
feels like that graphic has been used 30 times.
We're almost 5 months. Oh, I think it might be over that. 30 times is a lot. Still the greatest graphic ever made in PHNX sports history.
John saying, is Eusebio going to have a role in this offense? You know, I was talking with another media member out there today because I think Derek Eusebio, he is a talented wide receiver for the type of player that he is. He is quick. He's got really, really surefire hands. He runs good routes. I think the only thing that's going to realistically keep Derek Eusebio from being a big part of this offense or a part of this offense at all is what we just talked about, the depth at that wide receiver room. So, like, you look on the perimeter and you've got Jordan Tyson, Malik McClain, and in the slot, you have Jalen Moss. Eusebio is more than likely, because of his size and his speed, he's going to be playing in the slot. Well, he's not going to start over Jalen Moss. Realistically, I think Zechariah Sample is probably going to be the second guy in that slot position, just because I do think he's a little bit faster. He is a tad bit bigger. He is more explosive. So that's your two there. You got Jaren Hamilton behind a guy in Malik McClain. Eusebio's not going to be the second. You know,
it's going to be tough for him to find some time.
It's going to be tough for him to crack the field on offense. I'm not saying it's impossible because we saw him do it last year, but he did it last year. You know, occasionally.
It wasn't like he was a main. And I think that there's a place for him in college football, but you're on a good team, man. There are good players who don't play on good teams.
I think he's more of a special teams.
Sure.
That's where he's going to get like his run here. But again,
I agree.
If he is thrust into that spot because of injuries, I'm comfortable with it.
I am too. And if he earns it and he puts on a show, then they'll put him in the game. Like, there's no way that he's just getting stuck to the bench for no reason. There is a question that we can answer here in a second. It says, who's going to be the toughest competition in the Big 12? Let's answer that real quick while we keep talking spring football right after this break. Hey, listen. Finances can be messy.
Oh, essential.
Well, something's getting effed, and it's everybody's finances right now. And that's why Monarch Money is here to put all of your finances all in one place. It is not just your average budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center for your accounts, investments, and goals. And with everything going on right now financially, you need to make it easier to manage your money. I'm always stressed out, period. But I'm always stressed out about money.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you got to make sure that you're putting money aside to grow for the future, but you still need enough to pay for groceries today. And what about trying to have fun in life? Do you have enough money to go on a vacation? You need to find a way to break it all down. Get control over your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code PHNX at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code PHNX.
Look, PHNX is proud to have Sanderson Ford as our official vehicle partner. I hope you guys took advantage of all of the deals that they had during Truck Month. But if you didn't, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go over to the Sanderson Ford facility. I almost like to call it more of a compound because it's 65-acre facility, makes them the largest Ford dealership in the nation. Of course, they always have deals on cars. I am still trying to get my hands, maybe when I get my money up, not my funny up, then I can go get myself one of those Broncos out there. But maybe you guys could win a Sanderson Ford vehicle over at the PHNX golf tournament that we're going to have here just in a couple of weeks. There's a hole-in-one competition, of course, presented by Sanderson Ford. A hole-in-one wins you a 2-year prepaid lease on a new F-150 Super Cruise. So it's going to be a ton of fun. Make sure you check it out.
Yeah, we do have an incredible golf tournament that we will both be at. So come hang out with the PHNX crew, not just PHNX Sun Devils, but so many of your faves here at PHNX at the Dobson Ranch Golf Course Green Jacket Open. It's a scramble. Shotgun start at 2 p.m. They've got PHNX giveaways, Masters watch parties, food, drink, Anthony Totri.
I don't know if that's enough to get you out the Dobson
We're giving
Ranch,
away,
but all of that stuff over
we're giving away Anthony Totri.
Okay.
A day with Totes.
I'm going to have to talk to some folks about that just to make sure.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
You didn't know?
I didn't know that. What exactly does a day
what
with
would be
me
the
entail?
What would be the monetary value of a day with Anthony Totri?
To like have me for a day? It depends what you're trying to do for a day.
There's like a menu.
It depends. It really does depend.
Everybody's got a price. Everybody's got a price. Okay, so real quick, the question from Ric Flair.
Yes.
The four, I think it said the 4 top teams. Who's going to be the toughest competition in the Big 12? I think
that ASU plays.
I think just in general. I think just in general. BYU was an answer. Kansas State was an answer. I think those are good calls. I think Baylor and Texas Tech are 2 sleepers that
I don't even think Baylor is a sleeper this year.
I mean they were good. I just think like contending for top 3 status, not solidified because I mean think about who we thought was solidified last year. But I think Baylor and Tech will be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I like the Baylor shout with Sawyer Robertson coming back. I think he was a dog of a quarterback last year. Kind of flew under the radar. Baylor did kind of in general. I think they finished like 5th in the conference.
They started slow, and then they really picked it up, and it was like Dave Aranda hot seat was a very real conversation at the beginning of the season.
My hot take last year was that he was going to be gone before conference play started, right? And here we are talking about Dave Aranda's Baylor Bears potentially being a threat to Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State when we talk about the Big 12. I think Kansas State's another team that you just look at with Avery Johnson. They definitely have a chip on their shoulder the way that last season ended. And then BYU, of course, they've got money to spend always in the transfer portal. So this was a team, that did really great things last year. I love Satake, the BYU head coach. So I would agree with all those 3. Yeah. You can't ever sleep on the Cyclones, especially given the fact that Rocco Beck is back this year again. So Iowa State is in that conversation as well. But I think when you try and cut up the top 5 teams in any given order, you've got obviously Arizona State, your reigning Big 12 champions. I think you've got Iowa State in there. I think you've got Baylor. I think you've got Kansas State. And I
know you're going to hate this.
I think Colorado has an argument.
That's what I was going to say. I know you're going to hate this, but there was a period of time Colorado was ranked last season, and they're losing some very, very good talent. This is going to be a pretty big test for Dion and company, who just signed an extension there. So I need
an extension like that. I need a $56 million extension.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I don't know who I need to talk to. Maybe it's a couple offices away from the people that I got to talk to that apparently sold me for a day for the golf tournament. But my goodness, what an extension for Dion, huh?
Yeah.
God. He's got to win this year, though.
Yeah, I mean,
they weren't.
Yeah, but also he just got the extension, so they're not going to buy him out.
No, they're not. They're never going to buy him out. He'll be there as long as he wants to. But you got to actually win something this year.
Like what? Like what?
Didn't they lose their bowl game to BYU?
Yeah,
they lost their bowl game.
What's a successful season for them?
You either need to be in the Big 12 championship or you need to win a bowl game. No more. Just
the real Big 12 championship, the Alamo Bowl, as everybody's always been saying.
So gross.
The real Big 12 championship.
I never understood that, man.
So back to football.
Back to foosball.
Sorry,
we
back
were
to
talking
Arizona
foosball.
State
there we go.
Football. We were talking a lot about the offense, the wide receivers. I feel like we've talked about the tight ends relentlessly. How's offensive line looking out there? I feel like that's like the only unit, and it's hard to judge a lot of offensive line stuff and line stuff in general in spring ball, but I just feel like out of all the offensive rooms that we've talked about, they've been the one that's kind of been left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about the Arizona State offensive line, I feel very comfortable with the group that they're rolling out there with the ones. You've got a Jalen Clem, you've got Sean Nah, you've got Ben Coleman.
How's Clem look?
Clem looks really good.
Yeah.
I think he is your certified right tackle. I know when Max gets back,
big?
he doesn't look as big as Max. No, he's not as tall as Max. He's not like as beefy as Max, but I think his technique is a little bit better. But we'll see obviously what transpires in the fall when Max does end up coming back. What does that look like? Do they kick him over to left tackle and it's more of a conversation in a competition with Josh Atkins? Or is he just kind of like a tackle that you have in there just in case anybody gets hurt? So I feel good with where the starting offensive line is. The depth at the offensive line is something that does concern me. I think we kind of glossed over the fact that Arizona State got pretty lucky last year with their injuries along the offensive line. They didn't really have to deal with a whole bunch of them. Once they made the change at left tackle from Emmett Boley to Josh Atkins, it felt like the offensive line was pretty stable the entire year. You know what you got from Lee Fatanu, from Ben Coleman at guard, and realistically from that unit as a whole. So I feel good with the guys that they have out there with the ones. However, if anyone were to go down on that offensive line, especially at either the center or the tackle positions, I feel like we would be in a little bit of a predicament. There's not a lot of centers on this team. There's just not a lot of kids that are like centers in general.
Yeah.
And it's tough to find starting caliber tackles in college football, especially to get them to come to Tempe. Right. There are so many other programs in the SEC, in the Big Ten, where it's just more attractive to be an offensive lineman because those universities churn out NFL offensive linemen. Arizona State doesn't necessarily do that. So it's going to be something I think to monitor when the season actually does, start. But as long as they stay healthy, the offensive line in theory should be a pretty solid unit.
House of Heat Sports and Jaren are asking for updates on the kicking, and House of Heat follows it up and says, are we going to have any post-game freakouts again to say we're holding walk-on tryouts?
You shouldn't have to. Jesus looks like he's going to be the guy. I think that he is a more accurate kicker than you had last year. Maybe the
low
leg,
bar to clear.
Maybe the leg isn't like something that's going to hit 60-yarders. I think,
but I'm okay with that at this point.
I feel very comfortable 45 yards and in with Jesus. I think he does have the leg to get some of those 50-yarders. It's easier in practice than it is in an actual game setting to be able to do that. But I think this kid will be your starting kicker. There's a reason they went and got him in the portal. I don't see a world where any of the other guys actually beat him out for that starting kicker spot.
I would hope not.
I'd be very angry.
That's why he's there. Okay, so I feel like we've covered everybody on the offense. You want to move over to defense?
Let's do it. Let's hop on over.
Who is the biggest standout that we haven't mentioned yet? I feel like I've heard a lot about Montana, heard about Rodney. I've heard a lot about the secondary. I did see you post about Elijah O'Neal today.
I did, yeah. Elijah O'Neal is a guy that was, one of the most improved players last season.
Donald's favorite.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard not to like a guy like that that's really waited for his turn, grown every single year. I think he is going to be another interesting player on this defensive line. I think, last year I harped a lot on the fact that the pass rushers and really this defense in general, they did a great job, but I felt like the pass rush just wasn't ever really there consistently, right? How many times on third downs were we talking about, hey, like, we could use a sack to get off the field here, and it just didn't transpire. It didn't happen, and they pick up a first down. So I think there's going to be a lot of eyes and a lot of pressure on, a Clayton Smith, on a Prince Dorba, on Elijah O'Neal to really get after the quarterback this year. I think they will have a better opportunity to do that with the fact that Arizona State's interior, the defensive line beefed up. So I'm interested to see how much they stat pad against NAU and Texas State. But yeah, I think overall the pass rushing unit has been really, really solid. And Clayton Smith looks as good as ever. Elijah O'Neal is fun. Not necessarily. I think, after his first year, we saw a jump in size. I think from here on out, he's kind of just stayed the same. Him and Dorba, again, are going to be your bookend ends there. And then Elijah O'Neal will be probably your rotational guy. So we'll see what comes of those guys. But again, Elijah O'Neal and Clayton Smith have been a lot of fun to watch out there.
I'm excited about Prince Dorba because his season, obviously, because of injuries, didn't get started off the way that he wanted to. And it never felt like he was fully the Prince Dorba that we expected him to be. Not that he was bad when he was back, but when he was gone, and he said Prince Orba versus Texas was awesome. Like, I agree. And I feel like, he needed some time to ramp up and get back from this injury. So I'm hoping that he could stay healthy throughout this offseason and hit the ground running at the start of this upcoming year instead of starting, on the sidelines. Yeah. And I think it's going to be pretty big for this defensive line is if Prince Orba can play like he did against Texas or play like peak Prince. Great name there. Purple Rain. And put some enormous amount of pressures on. Plus, also don't underrate the fact that like when you're playing like the NAUs of the world or Texas State of the world, and if you're able to, as a defense, suffocate, dominate, kind of like you did against Wyoming, right? And the note that strikes going forward. A lot of this stuff, especially when it's like me versus you, right? Like defensive line, offensive line, it's a confidence game thing.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right.
Yeah.
I do want to correct myself on the Jesus Gomez stuff. I see some people in the chat saying, didn't he hit a 58-yarder?
Fake news.
Hit a 57-yarder. He overall throughout his career at Eastern Michigan went 6 of 11 from 50 yards out. So he's got the leg for it. He's not a Tyler Loop, right? The U of A kicker from last year who was literally just ripping 50-yarders.
If we had Tyler Loop, we would have won the Natty.
I wouldn't go that far.
The Natty.
I'm not going that far.
The Natty.
No, you're not winning the Natty with
Natty.
Not happening.
The Natty.
You're probably winning the Texas game.
The Natty.
You're not winning the national championship.
The Natty.
I'm glad you have that level of confidence. Again, as it relates to Jesus, I think he's a solid kicker. He's an upgrade from what you had last year. I'm still like a guy that went 6 of 11 from 50 yards out. I'm not going to roll him out there every single time, especially if it's like a 4th and 1 with this offense.
Exactly. Yeah, so that wasn't going to happen even if they did have Tyler.
I will say I do feel more confident than I did last year. And then going back to, again, Prince Orba and some of those guys. Orba was one of the really, really interesting stories from last year, right? A guy that got bigger. We saw it. He looked faster. He looked stronger. Coming off a year where he was tied for the team lead for sacks with BJ Green and then got hurt. TNT. Then you have a situation where he comes back and he doesn't look necessarily the same. Then he gets hurt again, multiple points through the year dealing with injuries.
Very up and down season.
But he's got the size and the ability. Like we've seen him be able to do that.
And he ended on a high note too.
I mean, I'm really interested to see now him going into year 3 at Arizona State. Like it's going back to what we talk about with the offense when we're talking installs and, the pressure and being able to pick up all of that information. I think Prince and Clayton now, because they've been here for such a long period of time, they play so free and so fast. I want to see if Brian Ward and AJ Cooper and some of these other defensive assistants kind of how they prepare week in, week out to try and elevate this pass rush, because the pass rush, in my mind, outside of special teams last year, pass rush and just strictly getting to the quarterback was probably the lowest success rate that this team had outside of, missed field goals.
Yeah.
So really boosting that, because that immediately makes life so much easier for the rest of the defense. We're talking on the back end with the corners, the safeties. You're able to force more turnovers, the linebackers. I think, again, you've got CJ Fight now on the interior of this defensive line going into another year. I think he's gotten bigger. He's gotten stronger. I know going into last offseason, he wanted to develop more of a pass rush. So I'm really curious to see what this defensive line just overall comes to. But, I wish this team would have added another true pass rusher.
Yeah.
But I think this kind of shows their belief in the guys that they do have.
Yeah, and you never know, like development and whatnot with this team is usually through the roof. So, but you mentioned, the secondary, the people behind them, Tony Lewis and Kuba.
Yeah, he moved to safety.
Moving to safety. How do you feel about that?
I like it. I don't think this safety room is incredibly deep. So being able to move Tony Lewis and Kuba, who is a longer defensive back, right? I believe he's listed at 6'1", 6'2", could be even taller than that. I do think he needs to put on a little bit more muscle. That's something maybe Coach Joe works with him over the summer. But between him and then Chris Johnson, who initially came to Arizona State as a corner, similar to Tony Lewis and Kuba, both of them back at safety kind of just speaks to maybe not the lack of talent here, but just a depth thing.
The excess of talent in one room.
Exactly.
And the other room not matching that. And if you have the ability to switch over, then we're going to put you there now.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting and then somebody getting injured or somebody not playing up to standard or whatever. And now mid-season, 2 weeks before the season, whatever it is, now we move you over to safety. Let's get you over there now. We're fine on this end. We think we can utilize your talents over here, and you're not starting over here. You know, you have a better chance of playing as a safety. So I like that this move is being made now.
Yeah.
In the spring, and not, hey, we thought about it over the summer, fall camp, Camp T, first couple weeks of the season. We're going to have you practicing with a different positional group.
It also kind of just, speaks to how much belief they have in Montana Warren.
Yeah.
Right? Because Montana Warren was initially a safety when he came to Arizona State. And then he spent a year at that position. Then they moved him to nickel. We saw last season, obviously a ton of Shamari, but him playing behind Shamari. So, they really, really do believe in what Montana brings there. You talk about Kendrick Breedlove, Nyland Green, those additions from Purdue. Those are corners, right? You're not necessarily bringing them in and converting older players to safety spots. I think because Chris and because Tonio Sankuba are still so young, you can really mold them to be whatever defensive back you want them to be. And I think having them more on the back end when you need to rotate an Xavion Alford, or a Miles Rouser needs a breather, as opposed to, hey, we've got an excess of corners and we like those guys, and we don't realistically want to do anything with Keith and Javen. So I think it makes sense. I think you see the defense utilizing the talent and the depth that they do have at one position and kind of converting it into another.
You know what I feel like has been pretty quiet this spring?
Tell me.
Conversation around Ghost and X.
But I think that's...
And not in a bad way.
Yeah, I think it's just because there's not a conversation to be had. I think both of these guys are...
bona fide starters.
This is a tough question, but are they two of the top 4 players on the defense?
Yeah, those two. Keyshaun, who we also haven't really talked about.
But then you've got the conversation of, hey, we've got Keith over here. Yeah. You've got Javen, who had an interception.
Top 4. He made big plays because he had the BYU interception and he had the interception in the Peach Bowl.
Exactly. So he made 2 ginormous plays.
Did he get a pick in the Big 12 championship?
I don't know. I felt like everybody got a pick in the Big 12 championship.
You get a pick. You get a pick. You get a pick.
There's so many guys that we can look at.
I think CJ Fight is definitely in that
Clayton
conversation
Smith,
as well.
I think is worthy of a nod there.
I think X.
It's a tough question.
Maybe that's a separate show.
That's fair.
Ranking the top 5 on each side of the ball.
I think
boom,
we can
look
do
at that. Mid-July. Bang. Nailed that. Okay, but
Put it in the notes, Jaren.
As far as today's main topic. Do you want to get into fact or cap?
Let's get into fact or cap. Brought to you guys by Branded Bills. Make sure you elevate your brand with Branded Bills, the perfect headwear and apparel. Make sure you use that code PHNX for 20% off your first order. Erik and Captain Redbeard, I'm curious. The Arizona State offense, will it be better than the Arizona State defense this season?
This is so tough. I still don't have an answer for this. But let's talk it out.
Let's do a little therapy session. Okay. Should we bring in the therapist down the hall?
No.
It is Therapy Thursday.
See, you know what's crazy is that now every time I hear the word therapy, it triggers me. Yeah, which is the exact opposite.
We've ruined therapy for you.
100%. I'm telling Megan. I'm saying, therapy's been ruined. I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, anyway. So I feel like as far as top end explosive talent goes, I think offense has that.
Okay.
Right. And offense also has a lot more question marks, though. For defense, a lot less question marks and a very solid collective unit. But I don't think that they have Arizona State's offense has 2 potentially top 5 players at their position in the country, in the 2 most important offensive positions out of the top 3. Right. Yeah. So 2 potential postseason award candidates in Heisman and in Biletnikoff.
First round picks.
Yeah, Sam Leavitt, Jordan Tyson, right? And then we've already mentioned about all of the depth surrounding that. But depth, a lot of that built around the unknown. Can Sip be running back 1? Is Kanye running back 1? How do the rest of the wide receivers that have transferred fill in? Or Malik McLean, who didn't play a lot last year, right? So I feel like there's more question marks on the offensive side. The defensive side, don't get me wrong. tons of top end talent. We just went through who are the top 4 on this defense. We had a lot of answers. But nobody that I think preseason they're going to be talking about, hey, this is a top 5 safety in the country, top 5 corner in the country.
Alford is going to be fringe.
I think Alford was the closest to being in that conversation. I think Leavitt and Tyson are firmly in that conversation.
Well, I had asked Alford about this again, not to steer you too far off the question, but I had people at the combine that were telling me that there were scouts asking why Xavion Alford didn't declare for the draft.
And I think that makes sense. I think Alford's an NFL player.
Yeah.
I think Alford, I think Keyshaun, I think Fight eventually. I think those are all NFL level players, right? So this is not me trying to say that there's talent on offense and there's friendship and unity on defense. No. But I want to lean defense because the defense is more, I guess, cohesive, but that top end talent is so tantalizing.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the argument that you have to make, right? Is you've got Sam, you've got Tyson, you saw what they were able to do. In theory, Arizona State upgraded seemingly at every position except running back, right? Which, again, you're not going to really upgrade from a guy like Cam Scadaboo based off of his production last season. But the offensive line, I think, is equal to or better. I think, honestly, right now through spring, they're further ahead at this time than they were last year in the spring. The wide receiver room, I think, took a jump. I think there's more overall talent and depth in that room. There's more depth at running back. Again, you lose your star in Cam Scadaboo. So the offense is really, really good. But to your point on defense, like, there aren't those question marks realistically with any of the starters. Like, the defensive line, you're like, okay, these are the same guys that you rolled out there last year. The only question is, hey, can we get to the pass? Wow, can't speak. Can we get to the quarterback a little bit better than we did last year? You feel confident with your bookend corners that you have on each side. Yes, you lose Shamari. This team feels confident about what Montana Warren brings. The linebacker room, you're bringing back 3 of the 4 major contributors in Jordan Crook, Keyshaun Elliott, Zyrus Viaseu, Martell Hughes. I feel real good about what he brings as a linebacker, especially since he doesn't have to be thrust into a starting role. He's more of a rotational guy. And then, like we just talked about, Miles and X are, I mean, they were 2 of the best players on this defense last season. So I think for me to answer this question, it's tough. And I think there are going to be points throughout the year where we're going to be like, maybe the offense is better. Maybe the defense is better. I think as it stands right now, I'm going to say that the defense is going to be better. But the only reason that I am going to say that is because I believe that this Arizona State defense is going to be the best defense in the Big 12.
Wow. See, I'll take offense. Okay. I'll take the, look at me, glitz and glamour. Give me the top 5 guys.
Offense entertains, defense wins championships, buddy.
I think William also has a good point. Chat says up until week 5 or 6, the defense will be a better unit. Offense will catch up and be the better unit in the back half of the year. Just comes down to chemistry. I think it's interesting. Captain, break this tie. Captain tiebreaker.
This is the best factor cap you've had.
I agree. I agree.
Because it can go either way.
Yeah.
The way I see it is, like, there's a conservative answer, and then there's one based on potential mostly.
Yeah.
And that's the
Some
offense.
of us are believers, Captain.
Yeah, I know.
I believe this offense
Some
is
of
going
us
to be good.
believe in magic.
I believe this offense is going to be
The
good.
offense could be one of the best offenses in the country next year. Or they could be, like, not as good as people are thinking.
Yeah.
And the defense is clearly, in my head, like right now, as you're both saying, like, the defense is better than the offense. Like, there's more returners, there's experience under Brian Ward. And I just imagine as on defense, you have all these returners and experience, you're kind of in a comfort zone, and you can, like, sit there, know what plays are coming, and you have that familiarity. And then the offense has, they have to, like, grow and, get chemistry together. Yeah. So, like, to me, it's defense, like Totri said right now, but
it could flip.
But it could flip pretty easily. So this is a good one, Could go either way.
And in reality, like, something that it does, I do think gets glossed over a tad is Brian Ward has a year extra than Marcus Arroyo does at Arizona State. So these defensive players have been in the system for a year longer than Sam has that in this offense, and Tyson
and the offense is losing Cam Scadaboo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's like, even if you have the talent to try to cushion the blow from that, the adjustment period. But I think the correct answer to me is yes, beginning of the season. If we're talking about, like, who's going to start off better, I think it's the defense. I think if we're looking at the end of the season, I'll still take the offense because I do believe that this top end talent's going to power it. But like I'm gonna be honest with you, our cold open is the correct answer. Yes.
Yeah.
Who's better, offense or defense?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think again, like to the people saying that the defense is going to start stronger than the offense, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Like I think you look at the schedule that Arizona State has in non-con. Like they are going to run through NAU. I'll be surprised if NAU has a football program after what Arizona State does to them in week 1. I don't think you're going to see the starters on either side of the ball play more than a half, right? And then you go on the road in the, SEC country, what happens there, right? Then I think the defense probably has a better game on that end, right? I don't necessarily know a ton about Mississippi State's offense. And then you come back home to Tempe to play a Texas State team that in theory is worse than they were last year, and you beat them. Yes, they gave you a fight, but they're worse than they were a year ago. So I think the defense is going to really show up in that game, and I think the offense will show up as well because
they're both going to be good.
There are more weapons than just Cam Scattaboo this year.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's something that also plays into it.
But I also think that when you're talking about the chemistry thing, it's not really for me saying that the offense isn't going to click. I think I'm just saying comparatively between the two, right? Like I don't think the offense is going to have a problem. I don't think the defense is going to have a problem. And I think the defense will be just a couple inches ahead on the chemistry margin. But by no means do I think it's going to be like Sam Leavitt's throwing the ball backwards.
No.
Jordan Tyson is eating popcorn out in the stands. And Jalen Moss is like, I'm open.
He will be if they're up 40.
He
will be if they're up 40.
Throwing some popcorn back.
Last note on that before we go to break. Like the offense hasn't clicked yet. Right. Again, we're 5 practices in. I wouldn't expect them to click. The defense has.
Panic button.
The defense has 100% clicked. Like they're out there. They're flying around. They are talking their crap every single play to the defense. They're talking to Kenny. They're talking to Marcus. Meanwhile, the offense is still trying to get its feet under him a little bit more because of some of those new pieces. Still nothing to be concerned about. But again, like just in terms of this question, defense is already there. And we're 5 practices in.
Yeah.
So
that's fair. Well, I'll tell you what, we put a poll in there and we're already in a minute. We got 6 votes in and all of them are on offense.
Wow.
100%.
Wow.
That's right.
I just broke that tie.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, speaking of breaks. Yeah. How about that? High floors for offense and defense.
There you go.
For Arizona State. And you know what? When you are going to get a pizza, do you want somebody who was making burgers a week ago?
No.
No, you don't. And you know why you want to go with Empire today when you need flooring?
Tell me.
Because they eat, breathe, live, sleep, and that other thing, flooring. Okay? They don't have somebody who was an electrician a week ago, a chef 6 months ago, whatever it is. No. They live and breathe with dedicated flooring professionals, flooring experts who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to those big box stores. They leave you confused. It's a DIY project. The prices are crazy. You just don't really know what's going on. You get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I get overwhelmed very easily. And that's why when I need new flooring, I'm going to go to Empire today. Once I get my house, eventually, got to go with Empire because guess what? I can get $350 off just like you can. All you have to do is schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHNX listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHNX. Yep, $350 with code PHNX. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/PHNX for full details.
Well, look, we just gave you a company to install some new floors, but you're going to need a house to put those floors in. Whether you are buying or selling, the Carol Royse team is here for you. The best part about it is it feels more like a family than it is just a team. We had Carol Royse come in to PHNX Studios just a couple weeks back, and I feel like I learned more in that 15 to 20 minutes about the housing market, about the importance of buying a home, the realistic circumstances of selling a home than I ever did before I met Carol. If you guys are thinking about selling your home, you guys need to get to know Carol Royse like we have here at PHNX. So how do you get a hold of her? Well, call Carol Royse today at 480-776-5231 or visit Carol online at carolroysteam.com and tell them PHNX sent you. That's carolroysteam.com. Terms and conditions apply. Guys, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. We got about 10 minutes left, and I feel like this is the perfect time to talk about whatever the hell is going on with Bobby Hurley's basketball team. Yeah. That was me yesterday morning. And here we are.
Talk about the baseball team that's good and about to play U of A.
We really should talk about the
softball.
Basketball team.
It's just
you get a transfer. You get a transfer. You get a transfer.
You know what, man? I have very low expectations when it comes to this team.
As you should.
And I'm still disappointed.
That's on you, though.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Okay? It is not on me.
I can't gaslight you into thinking that ASU basketball's problems are your fault.
This is not my fault. I swear this is not my fault. Okay? I definitely knew that it was a possibility that Quaintance would leave. I didn't think he was going to.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong.
Yeah.
There. Not a reporter. Forgot about Austin Nunez. Okay. Not like you were playing anyway,
also,
but still.
hit the portal.
Gone.
For the third time.
The sure jihad. Who even knows if he can play basketball again?
Well, he doesn't have eligibility.
But still in the portal.
Still in the portal.
Said I can't end here.
They can apply for certain waivers and stuff.
Sure. I played for Bobby Hurley waiver.
Yeah.
I wasted a year of my college career waiver. Are we adding that to the NCAA regulations?
Rumors is getting hot.
Is that what's going on here? Next thing you're going to go, you're going to be like, oh, guess what? Adam Miller gets 6 more years of college basketball. Listen.
Big Sean
Phillips.
Too, yeah.
Sean Phillips, which is like, it's such a bittersweet moment.
Can we take a moment of silence?
Yeah.
For Sean Phillips here?
That's about all he gets.
Yeah.
No, but like it's just like, man, how many players are actually on this roster right now?
Adam Miller and Amir Ali.
Trevor Best?
Yeah, but
technically,
I wouldn't be shocked if
he just goes wherever Quaintance goes. Yeah. Things aren't good.
No.
Things aren't good.
Opposite of good.
No, they're not good at all.
You have Mo Odom too. And,
I mean, and that's, you know what sucks, man? You know what sucks?
Tell me.
Is that like some of these players that they're going to get from these lower level schools, like Mo Odom's good at basketball, man. And I was talking to Shane about this. If Mo Odom went to like a good team, he would be a killer.
Would he?
Yes. He was top 4 in the country in assists. He's a good
Pepperdine.
He's a good basketball player.
He's
man.
not blowing my
He's
shirt
a
up.
good basketball player. Well, good, because you have a date with whoever wins,
whoever
wins the bid for a date with Anthony Totri.
Yeah, terms and conditions apply.
No, they don't. Literally anything that you want. But you know, it sucks because this roster is going to be filled out. And I was talking with Shane about this, a bunch of mid-majors, Horizon League guys that are good at basketball, and that if they were dropped on a program that was actually serious, then they would be good. Yeah. Right. But they're going to all be meshed together in Bobby's final
Playhouse.
Farewell.
Bobby's Playhouse.
Yeah, Bobby's Playhouse, which is just roll the ball out there and play basketball. And it just sucks, dude. It just sucks. And this is, I know why they're keeping Bobby, and I get it's probably financial, and I understand that.
If it's not financial,
then what the hell?
Then yeah.
If it wasn't financial, they'd extend him.
No, if they extended Bobby Hurley, I think the people in Tempe would riot.
Arizona State baseball takes on Arizona Friday, April 4th at home, by the way. Get out to Muni for that. 6:30 p.m. first pitch on Friday and Saturday, 5 p.m. first pitch on Sunday, a 3-game set, Big 12 play. You can watch it on ESPN+. You can also catch it on the radio as well. ASU baseball coming off of how many wins in a row? 4 wins in a row right now. They took the belt to Cal State Fullerton's behind, also to Utah's behind, 18-6. They swept Utah, so great in Big 12 play. Took 2 of 3 from Kansas. Took 2 of 3 from TCU. They did lose to Arizona earlier this year. By a run, but this is a good chance for them to bounce back.
Yeah,
but
it is. So Jaden Quaintance.
Stop.
You didn't get your full...
Leave me alone.
Look.
I don't want to.
Yesterday morning, we knew you had the day off.
I was asleep.
We knew you had the day off. I was also. I wasn't supposed to be, but I hit snooze twice because I'm like, hey, there's no practice this morning. I'm going to do a little work from home. Then I'll head into the studios. Everything will be fine, right? So I hit the snooze button for 30 minutes combined, okay? Didn't feel like it, by the way. Didn't feel like I got an extra 30 minutes of sleep. I wake up. You would have swore that there was a national emergency going on with the way that my phone was blowing up about Jaden Quaintance. I got my tushy to the studio so quick before you could even spell Jaden Quaintance. We did the full-on hour show. I had my moment to let out my emotions, my therapy session with Ralph. Kyle was there. I feel like it's your opportunity to look into that camera and say how you feel without getting us canceled about the whole Jaden Quayton situation.
You know what's crazy is while you were hitting snooze, I was just...
You were honk-shoeing? Yeah. Lucky you.
That's what happens when you stay up till 4:30 unpacking.
I'm yelling red in the face here with Ralph.
I can't do it anymore, man. Yeah. I can't get upset about it anymore. Like, I'm not mad at Jaden Quayton. I'm not mad at any of these guys. Like, I honestly, bro, I'd probably leave too.
Not probably.
Like this sucks. Yeah. This situation sucks. You know, this team was supposed to have a damn documentary made about them
this is what I
this
wanted.
season. I know. You're like, come on, man, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. Like, this team was supposed to have a documentary made about them. This team was supposed to be good.
Yeah.
Good.
Tournament team.
You can't retain Sean Phillips.
Well, Lenny.
All due respect, you can't bring back Sean Phillips. He averaged 5 points per game.
And he was the guy that was going to start. Bye-bye. He was a starter. He's going to be a starter.
Bye-bye, ASU. Can't do it. Adios. Like, your only saving grace to keeping Bobby Hurley as your basketball coach was getting Koa Pete. And in case you missed it, they didn't get Koa Pete. So here we are. No Quaytons, no Sannon, no Koa. We got Amir Ali playing 1-on-5 basketball with technically Adam Miller possibly and Trevor Best there as well.
And Mo
Odom, my bad. Like, this just blows.
Yeah.
It blows. Like, I'm not saying this program needs to be a blue blood, but damn, can we have some blood? Can we have any life? A heartbeat? Lungs? A brain? God forbid some skin?
Yeah.
Can we have anything for this program besides getting ripped down to bare bones and left for dead for vultures to pick you apart?
Feel better?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't feel better.
Like
my blood pressure is just bump,
I feel like you did need to get that out, though.
No, I've said it about 1 million freaking times already.
But not here.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I've said about a majority of what I just said.
After all this happened, they had 4 players transfer in 24 hours.
Crazy.
Austin Nunez, who missed the entirety pretty much of last year with an injury, who transferred from ASU to Ole Miss, back to ASU, would be the biggest troll job in the world if he transferred back to Ole Miss. You had Sean Phillips transfer from LSU to ASU, developed, and now it's like, hey, I'm going to go get a bag. Peace out. Bashir doesn't even have the eligibility left, right? Peace. I'm gone anyways. Don't want to be associated with you. You're right. Jaden Quayton, your prized, quote unquote golden goose, to quote Jason Mons on Jaden Fortier. Jaden Quayton is, like I said yesterday, the #1 player in the transfer portal by far.
Yeah, no, I agree. Nan1 says, y'all and these fans talk this into existence. Bet it helps the entire year saying how trash Bobby is. No support. Why would they stay? I understand your opinion, Nan1. I really, really do.
I would have a bigger problem if players were staying at Arizona State strictly because we said that Arizona State they should.
I don't think that the fan stuff is certainly something that I'm sure they feel, and maybe they watch this show. I doubt it, as I probably wouldn't if that was my season that was going on.
Yeah, I would stay off the internet.
And I get what you're saying, and fan support is so important, and this program needs fan support, but they have to earn it. They have to earn it, and I'm not gonna sit here and say what I don't believe about this program. It's just I get what you're saying, and I respect your opinion. But when ASU football was bad, when it was Herm, if we were just sitting here going, nah, it's fine, that'd be disingenuous, right? Yeah. And then when they're bad with Kenny, you hear our entire tunes shift, right? Because it's not just about the wins and the losses or the players being good or the players being bad. It's about all encompassing with the program. And if we see it and the fans see it and we feel it, you damn sure the players feel it too.
Yeah.
Me sitting here and telling you that Arizona State basketball is going to be okay would not have meant that any of those 4 players that entered the transfer portal yesterday stayed. And if it did, I need a raise. Okay? And you need to have a conversation, which, by the way, if you're listening to our conversation on TV, the party always continues over at gophnx.com. But Nan One, you're always here. I appreciate you. I appreciate your perspective. I'm still rooting for Bobby Hurley. I still want this program to do well, but I'm always going to call a spade a spade. Like that, I can't do anything differently.
Yeah. Again, like us sitting up here is not going to, and it's not anything we try and do, but like you can't trick a fan base, right? You could tune in and watch what we say, and you can watch the results. And if something doesn't add up, like you said, you're calling a spade, and the fans know that. They know that this basketball team is in shambles right now, that this basketball program is in shambles right now. And again, we can't sit up here and say in good conscience that it's not, right? Like nobody goes harder and goes to bat for these programs, I would say, when they're good than we do.
Well, even when they're not, I think it's nobody wants to see Arizona State succeed. And I know it's like facetious because I know there are fans than us.
Yeah.
Right. Like not only are we like, fans and we cover or whatever, like we went to this school, but like our livelihood is also tied to this school.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like when they do well, like that's good. Right. It's good for everybody. It's good for the city. It's good for us. It's good for fans. It's good for journalists. It's good for everybody. Right. We will always do our part in covering and shining the light on the positives, but we're not going to sit here and lie. I'm not going to sit here and lie to people. You're not going to sit here and lie to people. Captain Redbeard lies all the time, but that's okay.
No, big liar.
He's a huge Captain liar, pants on fire.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I think that's the end. I think that's about wrapping it. Once I'm calling Captain a liar, slandering his name.
It's time to go.
I think it's time to go.
Well, guys, make sure you hit that like button and the subscribe button on your way out. If you haven't already, drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. And if you enjoyed today's content, give us a follow at PHNX _Sun Devils. You can follow me at Anthony _Totri. You can follow this guy right here at Erik Ruby. That's Erik with a K. You can follow Captain Redbeard, the Alaskan Goat, at K Coop Sports on social. We'll be back for a Friday fun day. Hopefully there's some fun stuff to talk about instead of more people entering the transfer portal.
Amir Ali.
Tomorrow, same time,
Adam
same
Miller.
place. But in the meantime, go Devils. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.